Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen are the pairs that we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video as I do have a bonus pair in store. I'll quickly go through my trades for the week and then progress into the analysis shortly afterwards. If there is a particular pair you do want to see my analysis to, make sure you jump ahead using the timestamps below. But I had one position, well, two positions, but one was taken the week prior. So that will be silver, which I'm still holding on to and is moving okay. We have seen some nice upside. I'm looking to take advantage of that daily zone, which has acted as resistance and support very well. And this is where I did get the long entry from, on that nice bullish engulfing candle on this entry here. Since then, we've seen some nice upside. I have trail stops to break even. I did say I look to manage the trade when we get to this first high here. So I have trail stops. I have secured some partials as well. I'm still looking to see if we can get the move back into this daily zone, where I might call it quits. But because I'm looking at gold and seeing what gold's doing, I will take some more positions off the table, but I'll leave the rest to run because there's a possibility silver could be looking to push right back to the high here. Gold's looking very bullish, and we'll get to gold later in the video. But if gold's going to make a push back to all-time highs, maybe silver's going to follow suit. So I was looking just to close the trade here because I was expecting more downside for both gold and silver, but it doesn't look like it's playing out. So now I will look to probably hold on to a bit of my positions and see if I can swing that further. But that's the trade I had from last Thursday. And then this week I hopped into some pound yen short, which is going okay. I've seen a bit of downside. Hasn't really got going yet. CAD's been pretty strong. So compared to other yen pairs, this one hasn't really moved much. In a little bit of profit, stops still above here. I haven't managed the trade in any way in terms of trading stops or taking partials. Still full size on, looking to do that at least back to the lows here. This is when I'll look to secure some gains and trail stops as well. The end goal is to see if I can swing it back down to the low down here, because possibly we could be in that region where we could be forming a big head and shoulder pattern, left head, right shoulder, and you can see all the wicks there in the daily chart, weekly chart, sorry. All the wicks down the weekly chart. So I'm anticipating a high forming. If I take this zone here, drag it across, you can see we're really struggling to break through that area. So I do think there is a possibility for a big sell. Hence why I want to secure some positions and then leave some to run and trail stops behind that, because I could be onto a really big winner. I don't want to miss out on that move as well. But I will look to secure some gains around 109.5, and we'll see what we can get from there. But that's my trades for the week. In terms of the DXY, and then we'll take a look at Euro USD. So DXY, very, very bullish. Looks like we just about had a weekly candle closure above this level here. I'm not completely sold on the breakout yet. It looks like we might be seeing signs of a breakout, but I want price to really, push away from this area, give me another strong close to the upside. Something like that next week would make me pretty confident with the breakout, and then we can be talking about some buys all the way back to the high there. Maybe not in one go, but pullbacks along the way. See what we saw in the back end of 2022. Could be seeing that again going to 2025. So that could be what dollar is looking to do. At the same time, I wouldn't be too surprised if we do see a bearish candle come straight back down and giving us a nice bearish engulfing at that level. And at that point, I'll be very bearish on USD again, looking for a big swing to the downside. Let's not forget, we are in a ranging market. Price is now at the upper end of the range. All it takes is for us to reject the high of the range, or we could be looking for a big sell. So I'm a bit more neutral on USD this week, waiting for a bit more information in the higher time frames before I do solidify a bias. But what I can say is that momentum is still very bullish, and there still could be some nice opportunities if you're intraday, intra-week, looking to take some reactions to the upside. Say we do pull back, retest the high here. There could be some nice short-term buys there on the dollar, or short-term sells on euro and some other corresponding USD pairs as well. But long-term, I'm still undecided because I need that confirmation in the higher time frames. If we start things off with Euro USD, I'm pretty much looking at the exact opposite of that, which is some pullbacks into this area and then some short-term sells. I wouldn't look to hold this trade for too long because of where we're trading. If I go to the weekly chart, again, it's literally the same thing. We've just about closed underneath that low. Not so convinced just yet. Need price to really push away before I am convinced with the breakout. Therefore, I wouldn't be so aggressive with the sells. The setup does look nice. We had that consolidation for most of the week. Strong break to the downside. So a retest of that area could provide some nice shorts, maybe for a day or two, but I wouldn't look to hold that position for too long because the market may want to have a really big push up and USD might see some weakness. But if you're in an intraday time frame, this could be a nice short. If you're looking for something a bit more longer term and some buys, I do want price to go and break through some structure, so take out that high there. Then possibly we can be looking for some pullbacks, retest that weekly zone, and then we can see some buys shortly afterwards. But that might take a few days, maybe even the week after. So we'll keep an eye out for that. But at the moment, if you're looking to play momentum, because there's still a lot of bearish momentum in the market, this is like a nice short around 1.05199, and maybe some shorts back to low, and probably want to call it a day there. But that is the plan for next week for Euro USD. Okay, so up next we've got USD JPY. So it's been a slow grind to the upside for this one. It's one of the only yen pairs which I'm still kind of bullish on, because we have broken through this weekly level here and we haven't looked back since. If you look at a lot of the corresponding yen pairs, we've been testing some big levels on higher time frames like CAD yen, and it does look like price looks like it might turn over. However, dollar yen, I think because of USD strength, we have stayed pretty bullish and the market has still pushed higher, and we have been very consistent with these higher highs and higher lows. So I think for next week the buys still look good unless we do break through structure like this. If we see price break through that area of confluence, because we have bounced pretty well here, if we do break through that, break the trend line as well, then that would be a bearish signal for me, and I'll be expecting some more downside, and something like this could look like a really nice short next week if we do get that break of structure and break through that trend line as well. So that would be a nice short, but at the moment price is doing a pretty good job at holding on to that area of confluence, that support, that trend line. So if you do see another rejection next week, it could actually be a nice buy to take it back to the 156, back to the swing high there on the 4-hour chart. So the buys look good, the sells look good as well. It just depends what price is going to do at this particular level, whether we see momentum and we break through, or we provide some wicks, some rejections, some bullish engulfing candles, and there could be a nice bounce back to the highs there. So the main focus would be that level 153.900. Depending on what we do, it would dictate the bias unless it's bullish or bearish. For me, I'm more bearish on the yen pair, so I'm not really keen to be looking to buy dollar yen. So really, I'm looking for the breakout and then looking for the retest for the downside. But of course, I could be wrong. Price could hold support very well, and we might see a nice continuation. So keep a close eye on 153.900 for dollar yen next week. Be very, very pivotal in terms of the direction. But that will be the plan next week for dollar yen. Okay, so over to dollar CAD. So dollar CAD still in an uptrend as well. Of course, we had that really aggressive weekly candle closure last week, which was above this weekly level of resistance. Again, not really a pair which I'm looking to buy just yet. I need price to pull away a little bit further because it's still quite stretched. I need the bigger corrections before I can look to buy markets which have seen such a big up move in the higher time frames. So it's not really a pair I'm interested in to buy, but I can definitely say that price is doing a good job at holding on to prior resistance turn support. A couple of rejections this week, we've seen some nice bounces. Overall, the level is still holding, and again, we could see another rejection before continuation as well. If USD is going to keep up that strength, we just had a look at the DXY. If USD is going to break out, then you're probably going to see USD CAD also push the upside as well. Of course, CAD strength will be a factor, but if DXY is going to be pushing higher up, there's a good chance USD CAD is going to push too, and this is a nice area of confluence. Prior resistance turn support, and I believe we've also pulled back into the 50% of that bullish leg. If we can make sure we can see that, almost even wicked into the 0.618 with that wick there as well. But we're doing a good job at holding onto that area of confluence. So the key thing we want to see is price reject this level further. If we could provide some more wicks, that would be really nice next week to look for an entry based off that. And then in terms of targets, you can be looking at the swing high there. I would also suggest looking at this area to book some profits. We have struggled here a couple times already, once, twice. So we can definitely see the sellers are doing a good job at holding price at that level. So do watch out for 1.40200. But if we are going to see that continuation, the trend's going to continue, and we are going to see that big breakout for dollar CAD on the weekly chart, because we do still have this massive level here to our backs. So if you go back to the 4-hour chart, you know, it's like we're coming back for a retest of that big level as well. If we are going to hold all of these confluences, there is a good chance that dollar CAD does really fly and pushes right back to the high at 1.41. So there's a lot going to the upside for dollar CAD. Like I said, it's a bit too stretched for myself. But if you're looking for entries, this is a nice place for it. At least the push back to where we came from, 1.402 looks good, 401, and then possibly a push to 1.41 if you really do see that momentum we are looking for. But that is the plan going to next week for dollar CAD. Okay, so on to Euro Pound next. So we're still trading in that monthly zone where price has rejected on multiple occasions. I'm still looking for a bounce. I'm always going to look for price to bounce at these major areas rather than expect them to break. And if they do break, we'll reanalyze and go from there. But at the moment, price is still trading at a massive level of support in the higher time frames. So generally speaking, looking for buys on the lower time frames. Now, we do have this level here at 0.83, which price is respecting very well on numerous occasions. Bounced once, twice, third time. We had that big fake out over there. Then price went and rejected it again. And now we're testing that same area. Had a lot of news there on Friday, I believe. Yeah, a lot of wicks to the upside, so things do look a little bit awkward. But if we do see some nice rejection early next week, I do think buys look good, taking it back to that swing high there around 0.3800. Because if we are going to hold this and we are going to use that fake out to our advantage, you know, now's the time where I do expect that momentum to kick in. If we don't, then there could be some nice sells on the break and retest right back to the low, because last time we broke through this level, that's where we got to last time. So if we're to break through there again, there's a good chance we're going to see price make that same move back to that low. So if you are looking to try and stay in tune with momentum, and if we do see a strong break of that low, we probably are going to push to fill that wick there, 0.825. So shorts underneath that on the lower time frames do look good, stops above the zone, and looking to target that low makes a lot of sense. So it depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for the sells, which of course the market is still kind of bearish, so I understand that, but because of the higher time frames and where we're trading, I'll predominantly be looking for buys in this situation. So if you're looking for longs, 0.83 looks good. I would wait for some rejection early next week. The market's a little bit choppy, but if we do see some wicks, strong bullish engulfing candles, that could look good for next week. Push back to the high there at 0.837, 838. If we do break through, then yeah, looking to short that kind of range back to the low makes a load of sense as well. So it depends what your bias is and what you're looking for. Opportunities to go in both directions. But that will be the plan next week for Euro Pound. Okay, so over to Aussie dollar. So Aussie dollar, I'm still looking for a little bit more downside. We have a pretty bearish market. We've been falling for quite a while, and of course USD has been very strong, so rightly so. There is still this level here at 0.64, which I do think we can go and test. A really strong level of support on the daily time frame, and naturally I do think price is going to get there, because all we've been doing really is just ranging between the highs, the major highs and the major lows. And since we rejected the high there, you expect us to now come back and test the low. So I still do see a bit more downside before we can start to discuss some buys. At the moment, the market is still pretty bearish. We've tested that level there really well. So as you can see, price support 0.654. This is the same area we were talking about last week. Price rejected it pretty well this week. So if we can come back and retest it, maybe form a nice double top, that could be a really nice entry signal for next week, early next week. Have some entries in that area, stops above the high, you know, even a target back to that low there makes a load of sense. But if you're looking to stretch trade a little bit further, you know, it does make sense to do that as well. It just depends on the risk reward and your appetite for your trades in the market. But overall, Aussie dollar is still seeing a lot of bearish momentum. USD is still strong, and if it's still going to keep pushing, that will most likely drag Aussie dollar lower. Aussie hasn't been particularly weak compared to like pound and euro and even New Zealand. New Zealand dollar has seen a lot of downside, so this one is a little bit slower, but potentially you might see that Aussie weakness step in next week as well, so be prepared for that. But yeah, a nice retest of that area. 0.654 looks good. Targets at 0.646 or back down at 0.64 look good, but overall still expecting a bit more downside before we do see a bounce there for Aussie dollar. Okay, so next up we've got NZD CAD. So NZD CAD looking really bearish this week. It looks like we are finally breaking out of that weekly ascending channel, which we've been looking at. I said I'm not quite convinced with this bullish structure here. It's just so choppy, not really seeing a lot of momentum, so I do expect it to break the low, and we have actually gone and broken the low now. So now the shorts do look good, and I do expect us to swing all the way back down to this low here eventually. Of course, a long way away, but I expect us to make that move. So as a bear, you'd be looking for your pullback shorts on the way down to take, pieces of the pie here. So if we can keep that momentum up, that would be great. Of course, we just broken through this low here, so that looks like a nice area for a retest for the continuation. Market's been pretty consistent with all of these lower highs, so the idea is that we're looking for price to continue that and keep up with the lower highs as well. What we don't want to see price do next week is a strong move back above this area and starting to hold a support, because then that will mean that this is probably just a big fake out and price will actually see some upside. So that would then invalidate that bearish bias. What we do want to see is price remain bearish, keep up with this bearish structure. We do have some nice confluence here with that trend line, testing those prior swing highs, testing that level of support as well, and of course testing that channel on the weekly chart as well. And if this is going to be a breakout, which it does look like it could be, really strong break of that low than the weekly chart. You see last week's candle or this week's candle closed with a lot of bearish momentum to the downside. So there's a good chance that that momentum can spill over into the next week as well. Might see price pull back first to create that upper wick, and then we might continue later on. So it's a really nice opportunity there for NZD CAD, taking advantage of that momentum. And there is a long way down. I would say keep an eye on this low here as a target, because you're probably not going to target this low down at 0.798 in one go. But some of these areas here could look as some healthy targets for next week at least. And then we can speak about price pushing a little bit further. So 0.81222 and 0.80700 as well. So that is the plan for next week for NZD CAD. Keep an eye for the retest. As long as we stay below, we should be good. And I'm expecting a lot more downside. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So at least for the immediate future, I'm pretty bearish on for pound NZD, but I do expect to see a bigger bounce later on, which is what I'm more interested in terms of the buys, because I do think there's a really nice swing setup on the higher time frames. You can see the higher lows here, 1, 2, 3, 4. At least these 3 points have tested the trend line really well. And all I'm looking for is the next bounce at this area of confluence, retesting the trend line and retesting that high there, taking as support. Looking for us to come back into that low, bounce from that, and then continue back to the highs. That really is the plan there for pound NZD. But in the meantime, we might see some more downside. You can see market structures being particularly pretty bearish. All these lower highs rejecting the trend line pretty well. We could come back into that same area, retest the area of confluence, see the next lower high, and have another drop to the downside. So there could be some nice shorts there. In the meantime, riding it down into that area of confluence where I'm looking to buy from, and then of course switching the bias, looking how we react, and looking to see if we can take it to the upside, looking for double bottoms, wicks, bullish engulfing candles. That's what I'll be looking for in those areas to take it long. But overall, pound NZD, we probably will see some more downside next week. And when we get to 1.125, that's when I'll start to look to get involved and start to look for some entries. And that's really the move I'm interested in. Possibly might see a continuation back to the high. I'm not really that interested in that. I'm more just looking for a bounce. It might mean we bounce then and later sell off. I'll be trading stops anyway. If we do get back to the high, fantastic. But I'm also just expecting a bounce here, since that's what the market has been doing. It's very in tune with the market conditions at the moment. So yeah, a bit more downside next week for pound NZD. If we do come back and retest that low there, could be some nice shorts in the meantime. But I'm more interested in the longs down at 1.125, 126 for next week for pound NZD. Okay, so over to CAD Yen. So this is the one I am short at the moment, and I'm still looking for a lot more downside. You can see in the weekly chart, we've had a lot of trouble at sustaining these prices. You can see the past few weeks, a lot of wicks to the upside there. And again, this week, this week, another bit of a wick to the upside as well. And the level I'm looking to short from it is basically this level here on the higher time frames, this 111 area. So I'm not expecting price to break through. If it does break through, then I'm going to have to rethink my bias. If we can hold on to that, I think there's a good chance price does spill over in the next couple of weeks, and we do see a really big move to the downside for that big head and shoulder pattern. So you've got the left over there, the head, and of course the right shoulder brewing up there. So really bearish on CAD yen. The trade I did take was a bit more aggressive because I'm looking to try and call the top really, but it made sense given how ascending the market is and how we're rejecting the highs really well. If you're looking for the more conservative opportunity, which is basically the opportunity I was describing last week, was waiting for the break of structure for price to break through some lows and then looking for the pullbacks afterwards. This provides a much more conservative, much safer opportunity. Of course, you're not as high up, but at least you've seen evidence of price breaking structure. So really breaking out of this ascending channel. So putting all of that to bed. Let's make sure we can see that. So putting that channel to bed, and then you can look for some shorts on the retest of some structure and a much safer trade. Of course, you might not always get the retest, but if you do, you expect these trades to play out a little bit higher with a higher win rate because you're not going against momentum. At least with this trade, momentum is in your favor. And hopefully I can find some additional trades to get into more CAD yen shorts and really milk this one on the way down. But that looks like a really nice opportunity next week for CAD yen. Keep an eye on 109,500, nice break of structure, retest. And then, yeah, I'm expecting a full swing back to 105. That might take, of course, more than 1 week, but I do expect us to get there. There's some areas here on the left which you can look to manage the trade and take some partials along the way. But that is the plan next week for CAD yen. Okay, so over to pound USD. So pound USD, we've had a really big move to the downside. If I scoot to the weekly time frame, you can see we've just got a really strong close below that trend line. We've had some really nice tests of this trend line prior to that. 1, 2, 3 was looking for the fourth, but price is now broken through. So I do think there is more downside in the tank there for pound USD. We could be pushing back to that price swing low, which is more or less around 1.235. That could be where pound USD is heading towards, and especially if we are going to see a pretty strong USD, and if that's going to continue, pound USD is likely going to continue falling. So taking that into the lower time frames, I was originally looking for the retest of this low here for a short, retesting that low, we broke through for really nice momentum, never came back for the retest, so that was a really nice area to then look to short from. But of course the market was just too bearish this week to see that. I still like the opportunity, so should we see a pullback there, I will still be looking for entries in that area. But at the moment there's a lot of momentum. We had a nice range this week, price broke out of that really well, so I would be looking at some smaller pullbacks, retest of that low of the range, and the continuation from that looks pretty likely. Of course that weekly low we just looked at is not too far away, 1.235. If USD is going to be strong, if pound's going to keep up that weakness, might see a smaller pullback to start the week off, and then might just see price continue to dump. If we do have that bigger pullback, maybe we see a bit of dollar weakness and dollar goes for a bit of a breather, we might see that pullback to retest 1.285. So that could be where we're looking at, but it just depends what the market's giving us, whether we're going to have a deeper correction or a more shallow one. Either which way, I do still expect more downside for pound USD. As you can see, this is the area I'll be marking up, as well as that one up there. Oh, didn't clone it. There we go. So these two areas, so 1.26 and 1.284 will be the areas that look good for shorts. And of course, depending how aggressive you want to be with your targets, looking for the full swing to the low, or where else, will probably make that decision closer to when the trade does form. But more or less, that's the direction and the locations where I want to be trading. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at for pound USD going into next week. Okay, so over to pound CAD. So pound CAD really bearish this week, big drop to the downside. I still do think there's more downside to be had with pound CAD. I'm looking at the weekly chart. Two really impressive candle closures the past 2 weeks, that one and that candle over there. I do think we can come back and retest this high. This was our last kind of major high in the weekly chart, around 1.73. To me, it looks like price is probably going to see a push into that level. However, we might pull back first. There might be some short-term buy opportunities along the way, and then we might see the continuation in later in time. So there could be some nice buys as we do approach. In fact, let me go back to the daily time frame. As you can see, a really nice low here. This was our second last major low, apart from this low here, which gave us that push to the high, which of course now we've broken through with a lot of ease there really. Now we're coming back into 1.745, so I do expect to see a bit of a bounce at this low, And the sell opportunity, which I'm liking a lot, is the retest of this support here at 1.77. However, the market's just been so bearish, we really left that level behind. So I'm not too sure if you've got enough juice to go back and retest that. It would be great if we did, because the shorts will be looking really good. Really nice drop there, really nice drop there. Haven't really seen much pullbacks since that first kind of breakout. So if the market does decide to pull back, there's a good chance it probably will get that continuation as well. But yeah, I'm just not too sure we see that pullback. In terms of the buys, we're coming back into a strong level here. I wouldn't look to hold into the buys for too long. Like I said, I do think we go a little bit further to 1.73, but because the market is stretched, I do think we probably will see some upside next week for pound CAD, and there could be some nice short-term buys to take advantage of before we do see that bigger push to 1.73, maybe the week after as well. But it's a very strong low, really big bounce there, so you do naturally expect to see another bounce. Like I said, I don't think it'll go too far. Maybe if we're lucky, a push back to that same area up there before look to take advantage of the shorts. That would be nice, but I would be a bit careful because you are going against all of that momentum there. So it's definitely a trade to closely manage in case the market does spill over again. But if we do see it pull back into 1.77, that looks really good, really healthy, lovely area of support. Haven't come back to retest the resistance, so there's a good chance we do respect that level pretty well. So now we're the plan next week for pound CAD. Okay, so over to pound yen. So pound yen, I'm pretty bearish on. As I said, I'm pretty bearish across the board for all of the yen pairs, or most of them. And I do expect to see more downside for pound yen. At the moment, we're testing some support, which I was pointing out last week. Major swing high over there. Now could be acting as major support as well. I'm looking for a pullback from this area before price continues to the downside. You can see you come back into this brief area of supply where the market had a bit of a pause, a few wicks to the upside, big drop to the downside. You can see prices got to that same area again, failed a few times. Now it looks like we are slowly spilling over to the downside, and you can see the market structure in the 4-hour chart. Very consistent lower highs, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just looking for the next one, number 5, and the continuation lower. So that is the plan there with pound yen. Looking for shorts in this area, breaking test off that low at 195, 195, 500. Stops above the area, looking for the continuation. And as you can see, we've got the 0.5, 0.618 in that same area as well. So it looks really good to short pound yen. Just nice area of confluence, looking for the continuation. The key thing I'm looking for is price to remain below this high here, since we just created new lows. If price was to go and break through that structure, that would invalidate my bearish bias, and then I would back away. But as long as we don't do that, looking for the lower high, looking for the downside. First, might see a bounce off that low, but I do expect us to continue and eventually back to these lows. But for now, I think that's a major target to look for, 190.5, and also the swing lower here as well is a great target to look at. Just depends how aggressive you want to be with your trades. But yeah, pound yen, looking for the next lower high. Keep an eye on that area. Wait to see how we react before taking any shorts, but pretty bearish next week for pound yen, and that will be the plan. Okay, so over to gold. So gold, now I'm very bullish on. I was pretty bearish on coming into the week, looking for the breaking test of that low. As you can see, we did break structure on the left here. Things were looking good, looking for a lower high for the continuation. However, we just didn't see that. Price just kept that bullish momentum and it kept pushing really hard. Now it's actually going and taking out structure to the upside. So this was the high that gave us the low. Now price has just gone and closed above that. So that completely eradicates that bearish bias I had coming into this week. Now going into next week, I would be bullish, expecting more upside and possibly a push back to the high there. If you flick to the weekly chart, look how that weekly candle just closed. Really strong bullish engulfing candle. The chances are momentum is going to take us back to the high and probably new all-time highs as well. So I am pretty bullish now going into next week with gold. You can see momentum there on the daily chart really reversed very well, like a big V-shaped pattern here. Impulse down, impulse up. So now I'm expecting that kind of correction and then the continuation higher. The only level which I do like the long from would be the same level I was looking to short from last week. So back at that 26.45 area, that would be a nice place to long, unless we create some structure next week. That looks good, but we'll have to wait to see how the week unfolds before mapping out those opportunities. At this minute in time, this would be the only area which I would consider looking to long gold from, and expecting more upside. And like I said, because of how we're looking in the daily, because of how we're looking in the weekly, I do expect us to get back to all-time highs now, which is 27.88. So very bullish on gold, expecting more upside. And yeah, market structure is looking really bullish now. So looking for corrections and continuations. 26.50 looks good. Expecting a push back to the all-time highs at some point, not next week, but eventually expecting a push back to the all-time highs for gold. Okay, so over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is still looking pretty bullish. It does look like momentum is slowing down a little bit. If you compare it to previous momentum, as we started this massive breakout, we are starting to become a little bit more tired. So I do think maybe you might see a bit of a flash move to the downside before seeing some more upside. We've got 100K just above us, so most likely we're going to get to that price, maybe by Monday we might be trading at 100K. So I do expect us to still see more upside, but there is a nice zone here where we did consolidate for a few days. I think if we can get a push back to that area, depending how we react, there could be some nice buys from that, if you're looking to trade Bitcoin, that is, and take advantage of some more upside. Because looking at the higher time frames, I know the weekly candle hasn't closed yet, but momentum is still there on the weekly chart. We're just becoming a little bit more tired in the lower time frames, which might mean we push down a little bit before continuing. And there's nothing crazy. If you look at prior bull runs, we do have some dips in the market. It's not just consecutive bullish candle after consecutive bullish candle. Even here we had some dojis, some moves to the downside before price ripped to the upside as well. So I'm not looking for any major turn of events. Still think Bitcoin is most likely going to keep up this momentum, but a pullback to test 93K I think makes a lot of sense, and then expecting more continuation from that is what I will be looking for. I do think 100K, it's only a matter of time before we get there and see some more upside as well. So yeah, very bullish on Bitcoin, a lot more upside expecting. Market's a little bit tired now, so might see a bit of a dip, but I do expect higher prices. But yeah, that is the plan next week for Bitcoin. Okay, so over to our bonus pair. Last but not least, we've got NZD JPY. So I'm expecting a lot more downside for this one. It's another JPY pair. As I've said, I'm very bearish on the yen pairs. New Zealand yen looks really good. It's still consolidating, so this one's not quite ready yet. You can see it very well on the weekly chart. Just a lot of sideways momentum, so price is not quite there yet. But for New Zealand yen, I do expect to see a big break to the downside eventually. Had a bit of a fake out to the upside there as well. Looked like price was trying to break higher, completely failed, came back inside the range. So I do expect price to use that to its advantage and see continuations lower. This area here where we had a brief pause when we had that drop in July, big wick to the upside before the continuation, came back to that area again, big strong reaction, and price overall has just been failing to break through that. So I'm expecting us to break lower, and should we do that, I'm looking for a push back to 87, back into those lows, probably a lot lower, might take out that wick there as well, but for now we should be looking for a push into that level. In terms of the setup, pretty straightforward. I just want to see price break the low of the range. Then I'll be looking for retest and continuation. So I want to see a strong break below, and then I'll be looking for the pullback, retest the low, and that's where I'll look to base my entries from. And then looking for continuation back to that level there at 87 will be the plan. But yeah, very bearish on New Zealand yen, just waiting for the break of that range. There's a chance, of course, we might find support here and push back to the high of the range. If that's the case, that's the case. We might just keep fluctuating. Eventually, we're going to break out. But looking at the higher time frames, it does look like we're more likely to break to the downside. So that's what we're looking for and waiting for. And once we do see that break, if we do see that break, don't want to talk in absolutes, but if we do see that break, we'll be looking for the retest of that area, break and retest, and looking for the continuation back into that low. And that will be the plan there for New Zealand yen. And that, guys, does take us to the end of the analysis. If you have found it useful, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and of course make sure you do hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Comment down below any pairs you're looking to trade for next week. I am eager to find out. But besides from that, guys, have a great weekend, and I'll catch you all in the next week.